to talk about self-published authors. When I first began reviewing on Goodreads, I did it for fun. I just had a ton of books that I loved to read. I loved to talk about my books with my friends, and I wanted to share that with the world. I would say 3 or 4 months into reviewing, I got my very first request to review a book, and I remember being absolutely ecstatic. Over the course of my Goodreads career, I have reviewed about 200 books sent to me by either authors or publishers, and for the most part, it has been a wonderful experience. One thing I love about my job as a reviewer is the ability I have to review self-published books. So a self-published book, much like the name implies, it's a book that you publish yourself. Any book out there, Cruel Prince series, Court of Thorns and Roses, Twilight, there is a team of people whose entire job is dedicated to making your book sound good. But when you're a self-published author, it's pretty much all on your shoulders. You have to figure out the writing, the editing, the marketing, how to get your books into people's hands, how to get it into bookstores. It's a lot to do as a self-published author. As a book reviewer, I try to help out as much as I can. I want to go through some of my favorite self-published authors that I've met either through Goodreads or through my blog. This is by no means an exhaustive list. There are so many wonderful authors out there, but these are a few of my favorites, and I'm planning to do a few videos on this so I can hopefully get all of the authors in. So without further ado, hi, editing Miranda and Squamish here. I don't know if I said this in the video, and I'm recording this just in case I didn't, but I just want to say, like, all of the books I mentioned today are ones that were sent to me. This is not a sponsored video. I received their books only to do a Goodreads review on them and a blog review. So anything that is not part of that is something that I did on my own and just because I want to. Anyway, back to the video. Right off the bat, we're going with Headshot by Matthew McAndrew. This one is the very first hard copy of a book that was ever sent to me. I was so excited when I unwrapped this book. I could not believe that I had a book actually sent to me for no reason other than they wanted me to read it. It was a dream. This book focuses on Nate Turney and his two friends. They witness a murder and then they have to essentially go on the run, try and figure out who is the real killer. And this one is a very fast-paced book. It's a little bit typical YA in the sense that you have to have a little bit of suspension of belief, but it's overall quite a fun book, and I will forever really love this one because it was my very first. This copy I actually bought for myself back when I was still just figuring out Goodreads, figuring out what I was going to do with my reviewing personality, my internet personality. I stumbled upon Simon Brading. He was a Goodreads author, and on his bio he said, like, I would give you a free copy in exchange for an honest review. And I had recently finished reviewing this one. I was like, okay, I can do this. I can be a reviewer. So I contacted Simon, and he gives me one of his books to review, and one thing led to another, and now I have all of his books to review. This is part of his Displacer series. It is following a young boy named Sam. He ends up being able to possess a pirate who lived several hundred years ago. The whole book is him trying to figure out where he is, how to manage a pirate ship, and how to get back home to his own time. And it's quite a fun book. I love the character of Sam. He is such a, I guess the right word would be like realistic teenager, in the sense that he's got some of those impulsive decisions, but for the most part he has a good plan and a good head on his shoulders, and I always appreciate that in a main character. I'm currently working my way through the third one, and I'm really excited to get back into this world. Oh, also one exciting thing about this author, he's actually just got recently picked up by a publishing company. He still was a self-published author when I began reading him. That's why he's still under this category. But I'm really excited for him. Alright, so next we have The One and Only by Julia Ash. I started reading this one probably when I was starting to really hit my stride on Goodreads. I was getting a few thousand followers. I was posting reviews every single day, and I was having a ton of fun to me. So this book is a post-apocalyptic, zombie, futuristic sort of genre. One thing that really struck out to me when she asked me to read her book was the fact that this was about a mother. And you don't really see that too often. You don't really see like the hero of the story being a mom. I really like that. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I'm kind of tired of the overworked mom, unappreciated mom. Husband is a jerk to her mom sort of books. And I really liked this one because I thought it was different. And it was exciting. So of course, when she asked me to read her sequel, I immediately jumped on that train. The sequel is really good as well. The sequel actually goes in a completely different direction, one that I did not expect at all. But that's a lot of the fun of these books. Like, with a self-published author, you get a lot of twists and turns that you never really see coming, and yet it's still quite an enjoyable ride. So then we have Brian Pacini. This author was, again, one of my earlier authors that I've read for. This is one of the very first books where I was completely engrossed in the story. I could not put it down. This book focuses on Pax as well as his group of friends. Essentially, there's a disaster that happens, and a bunch of kids from his high school and from neighboring high schools have to be shipped off to the Middle East, and then they have to figure out how to survive. It has a very interesting balance of all of the characters, and I quite like the way it ended. And also, I got sent the sequel. This is going to be a trilogy, so I can't wait to see what happens. Also, I don't know if you can read this, but that's me. So, he did quote me on his book, which was, I'm so blown away. When I first started Goodreads, I never would have expected this. I never would have thought that it would be possible for me to be quoted on a book. It has to be. I'm one of my favorite authors. It's mind-blowingly cool to me. If Nuns Were Wives was sent to me by Shani Chen. This book, I ended up getting it when I was pretty close to getting married myself, and I thought it was a great little advice book. So Shani wanted to be a nun for a very long time, and she tried to join a nunnery. She ended up not joining. She got married a few years later. Throughout the early years of her marriage, there was quite a few things that she noticed that, thanks to her training to be a nun, that she was quite well prepared for these situations. So she wrote an advice book about what married life would be like, or married life situations, and how a nun would look at those. And I thought it was quite a nifty little book, and she has to be like the sweetest person I've ever met. And I'm really hoping this book makes it big in the self-published world, because she's one of those people that you want her to succeed. So, we went from heaven, and now we're at hell. So, Hell is actually the second book that this author sent me. His first book, if I can figure out how to do the little thingy, it'll appear here, I swear. So his first book was Aftermath, and that was an alien invasion, brother-sister rescue mission sort of shebang. I quite liked it, and I told the author to kind of keep in contact, and if he ever wanted me to read again, I would love to. Spoiler, he did. So this one is actually way darker than I had ever expected from this author, but it ended up working out really well. So we start off with Cassie. She hits a hard time in her life. She begins hanging out with these kind of edgy kids, and she ends up almost way over her head, and one thing led to another, and then she's part of a satanic ritual. So this book is all about her getting into things and then her trying to get out as well. And I thought it was quite well done. It was a rather fun book. Hey, right? Want me to play? The Silver Ninja is by Wilmar Luna, and I thought it was a really unique concept. He used to do video game programming and cutscenes. One of those jobs where it's just like, there's so much stress, is it worth it? He decided to turn to writing. Wrote 2 books before this one. I have not read those books myself, but he got some feedback. A lot of the feedback was not the most positive. He loved his concept so much, he decided to rewrite it and republish it. Kind of like how they redo Spider-Man and Batman every few years, he did the same with his book. So in The Silver Ninja, we follow a former NYPD officer, Cindy. She's kind of down on her luck. Life isn't working out the way she wants to. She stumbles into her husband's lab. Like a lot of superheroes movies, she touches something she shouldn't and something happens to her. Having this like silver ninja suit, which gives her all kinds of powers, but it also has a lot of drawbacks, and she has to decide whether or not she wants to take up this mantle and potentially save hundreds of people, or, well, I'll just leave that for you to find out. So I'm a graduate student, and for the most part, the science wasn't too bad in this one. It's something that I'm always like a huge stickler for because I work with it every day. So there are like a few things here and there in this book that I'm like, wait a minute. But like for the most part, this book ended up holding pretty well. Enjoy the author's personality and his take on writing. I think he's a really nice guy, and it's a lot of fun to read for him. So I'm really hoping that he's going to have another project out soon, whether it be a sequel to this or to anything. I can't wait. I've had a lot of books sent to me by Michael, whether or not it be under his real name or under his pseudonym. Books that really stood out to me is his Monsterland series and then his Witches series. So Monsterland, essentially the zombie apocalypse happened, world's in chaos. This rich tycoon goes, you know what I'll do? I'll make a theme park. But it ends up really revitalizing the country's economy, is making this zombie theme park. And the rich guy ends up finding werewolves and vampires as well, and creates like this whole, ever hear of those human zoos like a while ago? It's kind of the same thing, but with zombies, werewolves, and vampires. So you have a lot of people in the book protesting, but also a lot of people like very curious to see what a zombie habitat looks like. This is all set up, and quite unsurprisingly, something happens on the opening night. And I don't want to give it away, but it was quite good. There's also a sequel that was sent to me, and both of them I really enjoyed. I love the main characters. They've got like this wit, this humor. It's quite good. And then Witches Protection Program, actually, this one just came out this year. And it was really exciting to see the author keep publishing. He kind of keeps me in mind. So this one here, it follows Wes, and he is a disgraced cop, and he has essentially one place left to go. Otherwise, he's going to get fired. And that one place is the Witches Protection Program, which is exactly what it sounds like. There's this whole subculture, this whole sub-world, maybe that's the right word for it, that of witches. Some are good, some are evil, and he's assigned to protect some good witches, but the evil ones are right around the corner. And I thought it was a really interesting take on the cop dynamic in New York. I thought it was quite an interesting book. I found out about Brit was because Michael, from this series, asked me if I would be interested in reading his mom's books. And I thought it was absolutely sweet. I hope I don't embarrass him, but I thought it was so sweet that both of them are authors, self-published authors, and they're really like pushing each other and helping each other through the self-published world. Has written this series. She has written part of this series. This series is actually an anthology based off of this one city in Bulwark. And there's just a ton of like fairy tale creepiness happening. There's a cop, and he's trying to figure out what is real, what is not real, how do I counteract magic, etc., etc. And each novella, I think they're novellas because they're so short, so each novella follows different characters and different aspects, and they're written by all kinds of different people. These are just the Brit Lunden ones. She has the very first one where she establishes the city, the little town. The second one she sent to me follows two of the main characters from the very first book, but it's set way earlier. And then The Devil and Dana Dalton is the most recent one published, and it follows a character from the first book who I feel like never really got a good justice, and she was not quite 2D, but she could have used a little bit more rounding out. And this book really does give her her full personality, which I was really excited about. So this will be my last one for today. Again, this is not an exhaustive list. There's so many authors, I can't fit them all in. What caught me was the title. And it's very much a tongue-in-cheek book, a little bit of advice, a little bit of whatever the heck he's thinking, a little bit of stream of consciousness, and a whole lot of fun. I remember really enjoying this book the first time through, and I was actually like snorting out loud, like that little that you give yourself when you're reading. I was doing that throughout the entire book. I mean, I'll read you my very favorite chapter of the book. So this would be my favorite chapter of this book. And it says, could the earth actually be flat? No. I just think the sense of humor is just like that level of quirky that gets me perfectly. And actually the author just recently published a new book, and I have a whole video planned on that, which I need a little bit of time to finish it up. But I'm really excited about that. It's one of those books where I was quoted on the back. So I'm really happy about that one, and I cannot wait to film that other video. Alright, so that was 10 self-published authors that I love. Let me know in the comments who you love self-published. Have you read any self-published books? Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.